The unyielding spirit of Orin. On the barren surface of Calthor, where the ground was cracked and lifeless, Orin trudged through the dust with a heavy heart but an unbreakable spirit. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks that dotted the landscape. He had been scavenging this forsaken planet for weeks now after his ship had crash-landed during an ill-fated expedition. Orin was no stranger to hardship. He had grown up on Earth, which was often referred to as a death world due to its relentless challenges. But this place was different. Calthor was hostile in ways that even he found daunting. The air was thin, filled with toxic particles that made every breath feel like inhaling shards of glass. Yet, he pressed on, driven by sheer willpower and survival instinct. As he moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, Orin's thoughts drifted back to the crew he had lost during the crash. They had been counting on him to lead them safely through the galaxy's uncharted territories. Now, he was alone, forced to rely on his instincts and resourcefulness to survive against all odds. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed in the distance, a sound that sent chills down his spine. He knew what it meant. It was the unmistakable sound of alien craft approaching. The galactic enforcers had been hunting him since he first set foot on this planet, convinced that he held secrets about their enemies that could turn the tide of war in their favor. Orin quickly ducked behind a large boulder just as a squad of heavily armed aliens emerged from their ship, tall creatures with elongated limbs and glistening skin that shimmered under Calthor's harsh light. They were searching for him, their advanced technology scanning the area for any sign of movement. He held his breath as they drew closer, feeling his heart race in his chest. They were relentless. They had already lost several men trying to capture him alive. But Orin wasn't about to make it easy for them. He had learned how to use this planet's treacherous landscape to his advantage. With careful precision, he began crafting makeshift traps using debris from his shipwreck and natural resources around him. He fashioned snares from vines that grew resiliently among the rocks and set up explosive charges using salvaged materials from his ship's cargo hold. As night fell over Calthor, casting an eerie glow across the landscape, Orin prepared himself for what was sure to be another confrontation with his pursuers. He could hear them moving closer now, discussing strategies in hushed tones as they scoured the area for any sign of him. "He's here somewhere," one of them growled in an alien tongue that sounded like gravel being crushed underfoot. Orin grinned despite himself. They were underestimating him again. He had survived this long by outsmarting them at every turn, using their own tactics against them. When they finally stumbled into one of his traps, a snare that sent one soldier tumbling into a pit filled with spikes, Orin felt a surge of adrenaline rush through him. It was working. The aliens were beginning to realize just how dangerous he could be. But then came a moment that would change everything. A sudden explosion erupted nearby as one of his traps detonated prematurely due to faulty wiring from his ship's remains. The blast sent debris flying everywhere and lit up the night sky like fireworks. Orin barely managed to evade the shrapnel as it rained down around him. However, he could hear the panicked cries of the aliens as they scrambled to regroup amidst the chaos. It was now or never. With renewed determination coursing through him, Orin charged into battle against them, his heart pounding in rhythm with each step he took towards danger. He fought fiercely, despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Each move he made was calculated and precise. He ducked under incoming fire while returning shots with his sidearm, a weapon salvaged from his ship's armory that had seen better days but still functioned well enough for close-quarters combat. The aliens were stunned by his ferocity. They had expected an easy victory over a lone human but found themselves facing an adversary who refused to back down even when wounded. As plasma bolts whizzed past him and explosions rocked the ground beneath their feet, Orin felt alive, more alive than ever before in this forsaken place where survival seemed impossible. But then came a moment that tested everything he believed about himself. A direct hit from one of their plasma rifles caught him off guard, sending him sprawling backward into a jagged rock formation. Pain exploded through him as he felt warmth spreading across his chest. Looking down revealed a gaping wound where flesh had been seared away by energy fire. For most beings, this would signal defeat, a fatal blow leading only toward inevitable death, but not for Oren. He let out a pained chuckle. Despite everything, if anything, this only fueled his desire to fight harder. "You think this is going to stop me?" he spat defiantly at the approaching aliens who hesitated at seeing their foe still standing despite such grievous injury. With sheer willpower propelling him forward against all odds, Oren pushed himself back onto his feet, even as darkness threatened to close in around him, and charged once more into battle against those who sought to claim victory over him. In that moment, wounded yet unyielding, he became something more than just a man fighting for survival. He embodied resilience itself, a testament that even when faced with death itself one could still rise against insurmountable odds. And so began a saga that would echo through time, a tale not just about survival but defiance against fate itself. The alien squad's perspective. Captain Varek stood at the helm of the command center, his reptilian eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered before him. The red dot representing Oren, the human scavenger, had become an enigma, a puzzle that was proving increasingly difficult to solve. As he watched the dot move erratically across the terrain of Kalthor, he felt a mix of frustration and admiration. "Can someone explain to me how this is possible?" Varek growled, his voice laced with disbelief. "We've thrown everything we have at him, and he's still standing." Beside him, Lieutenant Mara adjusted her visor, her expression a blend of concern and intrigue. "Sir, our reports indicated that humans were classified as Class 12 Deathworlders, but I didn't expect him to be this resilient. He's taken hits that would have incapacitated any other being." Varek's thoughts raced back to their initial encounters with Oren. They had underestimated him from the start, believing that a single human would pose little threat against a squad of elite Galactic Confederation Marines. But each skirmish had turned into a spectacle of chaos and unexpected tactics. "Remember when we first cornered him near the crash site?" Varek continued, his tone shifting from incredulity to a grudging respect. "He used debris from his ship as a weapon. I still can't shake the image of Gluck flying into that tree." The squad chuckled nervously at the memory, recalling how their comrade had been unceremoniously knocked out of the fight by a piece of wreckage hurled with surprising accuracy. "Then there was that time he caught our plasma grenades and threw them back," Lieutenant Mara added, shaking her head in disbelief. "I thought we were done for when he yelled 'pull' before launching them back at us." Varek nodded solemnly. "And let's not forget how he downed our neurotoxin like it was some sort of delicacy. He called it hot sauce. I've never seen anything like it." The room fell silent as they all contemplated their missteps. Each encounter had been a lesson in humility. They were not just dealing with an ordinary human, they were facing a creature forged in the fires of a death world, one who thrived under conditions that would break most beings. Varek's thoughts were interrupted by Private Zorak, who spoke up hesitantly. "Sir, what do we do now? He's still moving despite that plasma cannon hit. Our briefing said humans are tough, but this is beyond anything I've ever seen." "Indeed," Varek replied, his voice heavy with resignation. "We're not just hunting any human, we're dealing with one who treats mortal wounds as mere inconveniences." He turned to face his squad, determination flooding through him. "We need to regroup and come up with a new strategy. We can't afford another blunder." As they began to strategize, Varek couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, either their greatest victory or their most humiliating defeat. Hours later, as night descended upon Kalthor, the squad gathered around a makeshift table littered with maps and holographic projections of their previous encounters with Oren. Each red X marked a location where they had faced off against him and failed spectacularly. "Here's where we thought we had him trapped in that cave," Varek pointed out grimly. "We pumped in enough sedative gas to knock out a kraken beast only to find he'd drawn a stick figure on the wall with 'better luck next time' suckers written beneath it." The squad erupted into laughter tinged with disbelief. How could one being be so audacious? "Captain," Lieutenant Mara interjected, her tone serious now. "What if we're looking at this all wrong? What if instead of trying to overpower him, we need to outsmart him? Varek raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her suggestion. Go on. We know he thrives in chaos, she explained. What if we create distractions? Use guerrilla tactics instead of direct confrontation? We could lure him into an area where we have the advantage. The idea sparked something within Varek. Perhaps they could turn Oren's own tactics against him. All right then, he said decisively. Let's set up traps and use decoys to draw him in. We'll make it seem like we're retreating while keeping our eyes on him. As they finalized their plan, Varek couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie building among his squad members. Despite their fears and failures, they were united by a common goal. As dawn broke over Calthor, casting an eerie glow across the landscape, Varek felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. Today would be different, today they would reclaim their honor. They moved stealthily through the dense foliage, setting up traps and laying down decoys designed to confuse and mislead Oren. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for what they hoped would be their final confrontation. Suddenly, an alarm blared from their command unit, a warning indicating that Oren was on the move again. Positions. Varek barked as they scrambled into place, weapons at the ready. As they waited in silence for Oren to appear, Varek felt his heart race with anticipation mixed with dread. Would their plan work? Would they finally succeed in subduing this relentless human? Then came the sound, a low rumble followed by an explosion that sent debris flying through the air. The ground shook beneath them as trees toppled like matchsticks. Here he comes! Lieutenant Mera shouted over the chaos. Through the cloud of dust and debris emerged Oren, his clothes tattered and bloodied but his spirit unbroken. He charged forward with an almost manic glee that sent shivers down Varek's spine. Well, hello there. Oren called out cheerfully as if greeting old friends rather than facing armed aliens intent on capturing him. Varek felt a mix of disbelief and admiration wash over him. This human was unlike any adversary he had ever encountered. Human. You are outnumbered. Varek shouted back, trying to maintain some semblance of authority despite his growing unease. Oren tilted his head thoughtfully before bursting into laughter, a sound filled with genuine amusement rather than malice. Oh dear. You think I'm afraid, he replied between fits of laughter. Let me counter your offer, how about you surrender first? I promise only to use half of you as makeshift weapons. The absurdity of it all left Varek momentarily speechless as he processed what was happening. This wasn't just a battle, it was turning into something surreal. Charge! Varek commanded suddenly as Oren closed his eyes and began counting down from 10, a bizarre invitation for them to attack while he stood there seemingly unbothered. What followed was less a battle and more an absurd spectacle. Oren dodged their attacks with uncanny agility while delivering quips that left them bewildered. Varek watched in horror as Oren grabbed Private Zorak by the tentacles and spun him around like some kind of impromptu weapon against his comrades. Is this really happening? Lieutenant Mera gasped beside him as chaos unfolded around them. The realization hit Varek hard. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were engaged in a slapstick routine where every attempt at offense turned into comedic failure. As laughter mingled with panic among his squad members, Varek felt an odd sense of respect for Oren. The human wasn't just surviving, he was thriving amidst their attempts to subdue him. But this wasn't over yet. Determination surged within Varek once more as he rallied his squad for one last push against this unyielding spirit who seemed invincible against all odds. The last stand. Private Jax crouched behind a cluster of twisted roots, his heart pounding in his chest as he peered out at the chaos unfolding before him. The once orderly battlefield had devolved into a frenzy of confusion and absurdity. Oren, the human they had pursued for weeks, was now a whirlwind of energy, dodging plasma blasts and using their own comrades as makeshift weapons against them. Is this really happening? Jax muttered under his breath, unable to comprehend the scene. His training had prepared him for many scenarios, but nothing could have equipped him for the sheer unpredictability of this Deathworlder. "Keep your head in the game, Jax," hissed Corporal Vera, her voice sharp as she adjusted her weapon settings. "We can't let him get the upper hand. We need to regroup and—" "Regroup?" Jax interrupted, gesturing wildly at Oren, who was currently spinning Private Zorak around like a ragdoll. "Look at him. He's not just fighting, he's having fun. This isn't a battle, it's a circus." Vera shot him a glare, but even she couldn't hide the flicker of disbelief in her eyes. Oren's laughter echoed across the battlefield, a sound that was both chilling and oddly infectious. It was clear that he thrived in this chaos, relishing every moment as if it were a game. "Focus." Vera snapped again, but her voice lacked conviction. They were losing control of the situation fast. As Jax watched, Oren ducked under another plasma blast and retaliated with a swift kick that sent one of their squad members sprawling into the mud. The human's movements were almost balletic, fluid and unpredictable. It was as if he had studied their every move and was now countering them with ease. "Why won't he just go down?" Jax whispered in frustration, feeling a mix of fear and admiration for their opponent. "He's not just any human," Vera replied grimly. "He's a Class 12 Deathworlder. They're built to survive against all odds." Just then, Oren caught sight of Jax and Vera hiding behind the roots. With a manic grin spreading across his face, he pointed directly at them. "Hey there. Don't think I forgot about you too. Come on out, I promise I won't bite much." Jax felt his stomach drop as he exchanged worried glances with Vera. "What do we do?" he asked desperately. "Stick to the plan," Vera said through clenched teeth. "We need to flank him while he's distracted." But before they could execute their strategy, Oren charged toward them with surprising speed. 1, 2, 3, he counted loudly as he approached, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Now!" Vera shouted, and they both sprang into action. They emerged from their hiding spot just as Oren reached 10. He opened his eyes wide in mock surprise. "Oh no! You found me. Whatever shall I do?" He feigned panic before bursting into laughter again. Jax aimed his weapon at Oren, adrenaline coursing through him. "Get back," he shouted, trying to sound authoritative despite the tremor in his voice. Oren merely tilted his head in amusement. "You're going to shoot me? With that little thing?" He pointed at Jax's sidearm dismissively. "Don't underestimate me." Jax yelled back defiantly. But instead of retreating or showing fear, Oren took another step forward, grinning wider than ever. "I'm not underestimating you, I'm just genuinely curious how this is going to play out." With that taunt hanging in the air, Jax felt an overwhelming urge to pull the trigger, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was the realization that shooting this man would only escalate the madness further. Suddenly, Oren lunged forward with surprising agility, grabbing Jax by the arm and yanking him off balance. In an instant, Jax found himself tumbling to the ground while Oren stood over him like some kind of triumphant gladiator. "Nice try," Oren exclaimed cheerfully before turning his attention back to Vera, who was still aiming her weapon at him from a distance. "Stay back," she warned again, her voice shaky but resolute. Oren raised his hands in mock surrender but continued to advance slowly. "I promise I won't hurt you, unless you make me mad." He winked playfully. Vera felt her resolve wavering. There was something disarming about Oren's demeanor despite the chaos surrounding them. It was as if he reveled in the absurdity of it all rather than succumbing to fear or anger. "We can talk about this," she called out desperately. Oren paused mid-step and looked thoughtful for a moment. "Talk? Oh, I love talking. But let me ask you this, what are you going to do when I inevitably win?" A chill ran down Jax's spine at those words. There was an unsettling confidence in Oren's tone that made it clear he believed victory was within his grasp. Before they could respond, another member of their squad charged in from behind Oren with a battle cry that echoed through the trees. The distraction gave Jax and Vera a momentary advantage. They quickly regrouped and prepared for another assault. "On my mark!" Vera shouted urgently as they readied their weapons once more. But just as they were about to spring into action again, Oren turned around with lightning speed and caught their comrade mid-charge, lifting him effortlessly off the ground as if he were nothing more than a featherweight. "Oh look! A new friend!" Oren exclaimed gleefully before tossing their comrade aside like a ragdoll. Jax felt his heart race anew. How could one human be so strong? It defied all logic. "It doesn't matter how many of us there are," Vera said through gritted teeth as she regained her composure. "We have to work together." With renewed determination coursing through them both, they charged at Oren simultaneously from opposite sides, each aiming to catch him off guard while hoping their combined efforts would finally bring him down. But once again, Oren proved elusive. He danced between their attacks with uncanny grace while laughing all the while, a sound that echoed through the forest like an eerie melody intertwined with chaos. "This is fun," he shouted joyfully as he dodged another plasma blast aimed at him from Jax's weapon. "You guys should really consider joining me on my next adventure." The absurdity of it all struck Jax hard. Here they were, trained soldiers facing off against an unarmed human who seemed more interested in making jokes than fighting for his life. "Enough playing around!" Vera yelled angrily as she fired another shot, this time aiming for Oren's legs in hopes of slowing him down. But once again, he leaped aside effortlessly before responding with a cheeky grin, "Nice try. But you'll have to do better than that." Frustration boiled within Jax. How could they be losing to someone who treated this like some sort of game? Suddenly realizing that brute force wasn't working against this unpredictable foe, Jax decided it was time for a different approach, a tactic that might catch Oren off guard once and for all. "Vera," he shouted suddenly, gaining her attention amidst the chaos. "Let's flank him from both sides." She nodded quickly. Perhaps teamwork was indeed their best chance against this relentless Deathworlder who seemed impervious to defeat. As they moved into position once more, this time with purpose, Jax felt hope flickering within him like a candle fighting against an overwhelming storm. Oren caught sight of them preparing for another attack and raised an eyebrow quizzically. "Oh? Are we doing this again? How adorable." With synchronized precision born from desperation and determination, they charged forward together, Jax moving left while Vera took right, hoping that together they could finally bring down this seemingly invincible opponent. The unexpected alliance. The chaos of the battlefield unfolded like a surreal dance, with Oren at the center, moving with an agility that defied logic. Private Jax and Corporal Vera watched in disbelief as their squad members were tossed aside like rag dolls, caught in the whirlwind of Oren's manic energy. It was a spectacle that blurred the lines between horror and hilarity, and for a moment, the fear that had gripped them began to wane. "Is this really happening?" Jax muttered again, his voice barely above a whisper. He felt a strange sense of camaraderie with Oren, who seemed to be enjoying himself far too much for someone in a life-and-death struggle. Vera shook her head, trying to focus. "We need to find a way to stop him. This isn't just about survival anymore, he's turning this into a joke." As Oren continued to dodge plasma blasts and taunt their comrades, Jax noticed something shift in the atmosphere. Amidst the chaos, there was an unexpected glimmer of humanity in Oren's eyes, a spark that suggested he wasn't just a relentless Deathworlder but also someone who thrived on the absurdity of their situation. "Maybe," Jax began hesitantly, "maybe we could try talking to him?" "Talk?" Vera shot back incredulously. "Are you insane? He's literally using our friends as weapons." "I know," Jax replied, his mind racing. "But look at him. He's not trying to kill us outright. He's playing with us. What if we could reason with him? Find some common ground?" Vera hesitated, her instincts screaming against the idea. But as she watched Oren spin Private Zorak around like a toy, she couldn't deny that there was something oddly captivating about the human's antics. "Fine," she said reluctantly. "But if this goes south, I'm blaming you." Jax nodded, steeling himself for what lay ahead. They needed to approach Orin cautiously. He was unpredictable, and any wrong move could lead to disaster. As they stepped out from behind the cover of fallen branches, Orin caught sight of them and paused mid-laugh. His expression shifted from playful amusement to genuine curiosity. "Well, well. Look who decided to join the party," he called out cheerfully, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Are you here to surrender or just to watch the show?" "Orin!" Jax shouted over the din of battle, trying to project confidence despite his racing heart. "We don't want to fight you. We just want to talk." Orin tilted his head, clearly intrigued by this unexpected turn of events. "Talk? Oh, I love talking. But what could we possibly have in common? You're all squishy aliens with tentacles and I'm just a humble human trying to survive." "Exactly." Jax pressed on quickly. "We're both just trying to survive in this madness. You've shown us that you're not just some easy target, you're tougher than we ever expected." Orin's laughter rang out again, this time it was less mocking and more genuine. "You think I'm tough? You should see my morning routine. It involves dodging angry wildlife while making breakfast." Vera took a step forward, emboldened by Jax's words. "What if we could help each other? You've proven that you can survive against impossible odds, maybe we can learn from each other." Orin paused for a moment, considering her words. The laughter faded from his eyes as he looked at them more seriously. "You really think I'd team up with a bunch of aliens who've been trying to hunt me down for weeks?" "It's not about hunting anymore," Jax insisted. "It's about survival. We're outnumbered and outgunned too. If we work together, we might stand a chance against whatever else is out there." The tension in the air thickened as Orin weighed their proposal. For a brief moment, it seemed as if he might dismiss them outright, but then something flickered in his expression, curiosity mingled with hope. "All right," he said slowly, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "I'll bite. What do you propose?" Jax exchanged glances with Vera before stepping closer. "We know this planet better than you do. We can help you navigate its dangers if you help us defend against whatever is coming next." Orin raised an eyebrow but didn't immediately reject their offer. "And what's in it for me? I mean, besides avoiding getting shot by your friends?" "A chance at survival," Vera replied firmly. "And perhaps, some respect among your enemies? You've already shown us how formidable you are." Orin chuckled softly at that last part but nodded thoughtfully. "Respect is nice and all, but I'm more interested in staying alive long enough to find my ship and get off this rock." "Then it's settled," Jax declared with newfound enthusiasm. "We'll form an alliance, human and alien working together against whatever threats this planet throws at us." As they extended their hands toward Orin, a gesture of trust, the human regarded them with an expression that mixed amusement and sincerity. "All right then," he said finally, shaking their hands vigorously despite the gaping wound in his chest that squelched unpleasantly with each movement. "Let's show this planet what happens when you mess with Deathworlders and alien marines." With their alliance forged in the heat of battle, Jax felt a surge of hope wash over him. They were no longer just enemies on opposite sides, they were now allies facing an uncertain future together. But as they regrouped and began discussing their next moves, strategies that combined Orin's knowledge of survival with the Marines' tactical training, an ominous rumble echoed through the forest. "What was that?" Vera asked sharply as she scanned the horizon. Orin's grin faded slightly as he squinted into the distance where dark clouds were gathering ominously overhead. "I think our little party just got crashed by something bigger than all of us." The ground shook violently beneath them as trees began to topple like dominoes in the wake of an approaching force, a massive creature unlike anything they had encountered before. "Well then," Oren said with a mix of excitement and dread in his voice as he readied himself for battle once more. Looks like it's time for our new alliance to prove itself. With adrenaline pumping through their veins and fear replaced by determination, they prepared themselves for whatever monstrosity awaited them beyond the treeline, a test not just of strength but also of unity forged in unexpected circumstances. The aftermath and reflection. The chaotic scene on Calthor unfolded like a surreal nightmare, with the alien marines caught in a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Oren, the unyielding human, had turned their carefully orchestrated assault into a slapstick comedy of errors. As he spun Private Zorak around like a makeshift weapon and dodged plasma blasts with remarkable agility, the Marines found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about their foe. Is this really happening? Lieutenant Mara gasped as she watched Oren effortlessly evade yet another attack, his laughter ringing out across the battlefield. The absurdity of it all was overwhelming. Focus! Captain Varek shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. We need to regroup and come up with a new strategy. But as the squad scrambled to their feet, it became increasingly clear that their previous tactics were futile against this relentless Deathworlder. Oren's laughter echoed in their ears, a sound filled with both joy and madness that sent shivers down their spines. Come on, now. Is that the best you've got? Oren taunted, his eyes gleaming with mischief as he danced between their attacks. I've seen better moves from my pet cat. With each passing moment, the Marines grew more frustrated. They had trained for years to face threats from across the galaxy, yet here they were, outsmarted and outmaneuvered by a single human who seemed to thrive in chaos. Private Zorak. Varek called out urgently as he watched his squad mate get flung into a tree. Get back in formation. But Zorak was too dazed to respond, his tentacles flailing as he struggled to regain his balance. The sight of their comrade's predicament only fueled Oren's amusement. Zorak. You're doing great. Just remember, it's all about the follow-through. Oren shouted cheerfully before turning his attention back to the rest of the squad. As Varek surveyed the battlefield, he felt a mix of anger and admiration for Oren. This human was unlike any adversary they had ever faced. He was unpredictable, resilient, and utterly fearless. It was infuriating and awe-inspiring all at once. All right, Varek said through gritted teeth, we need to change our approach. We can't keep charging at him blindly. Lieutenant Mara nodded in agreement. What if we try to outsmart him? We know he thrives on chaos, let's create distractions and lure him into a trap. Varek considered her suggestion for a moment before nodding slowly. It's worth a shot. We need to work together if we want to have any chance of bringing him down. With renewed determination, the squad began to formulate a plan, one that combined their strengths with the unpredictability of their opponent. They would set traps and use decoys to draw Oren into an area where they could finally gain the upper hand. But just as they were about to execute their new strategy, an unexpected rumble echoed through the ground, a sound that sent chills down their spines. What now? Mara asked nervously as she scanned the horizon. Oren paused mid-laugh, his expression shifting from playful amusement to genuine concern. Oh, he said slowly, looking toward the source of the noise. I think we might have a bigger problem on our hands. Before anyone could react, the ground shook violently as a massive creature emerged from the dense foliage, a hulking beast covered in scales and bristling with spikes that glinted ominously in the light. What in the galaxy is that? Zorak whimpered as he clung desperately to a nearby tree for support. Varek's heart raced as he assessed the situation. They were no longer just facing one formidable opponent but now an entirely different threat altogether. Everyone! Get ready for battle, he shouted, rallying his squad despite their fear. Oren's eyes lit up with excitement at the sight of the approaching beast. Now this is what I call an entrance. Let's show it what we're made of. The Marines exchanged bewildered glances. Here was this human, wounded and battered, yet ready to charge headfirst into danger without hesitation. It was both reckless and inspiring at once. As the creature roared and charged toward them, Varek felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. They had no choice but to fight together, human and alien alike, against this new threat that loomed before them. "Let's do this!" Varek yelled as they prepared for battle once more. The clash between the Marines and the beast erupted like a storm, a chaotic whirlwind of energy and determination as they fought side by side against an enemy far greater than themselves. Oren moved with agility that seemed almost supernatural. He ducked under swipes from massive claws while hurling debris at their foe with wild abandon. "Watch out!" Mara shouted as she fired her weapon at one of the creature's eyes, narrowly missing as it let out another deafening roar. "Nice shot!" Oren called back with a grin before launching himself onto one of its legs, using all his strength to bring it down. The Marines fought valiantly alongside Oren. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their shared goal, to survive against overwhelming odds. As they battled fiercely against the creature, Varek couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come since first encountering Oren. What had started as an absurd hunt had transformed into something far more profound, a testament to resilience and unity in the face of chaos. Finally, after what felt like hours of relentless fighting, they managed to bring down the beast together, its massive body crashing to the ground with a thud that reverberated through Kalthor's jungle. Breathless and battered but victorious, Varek looked around at his squad mates, and then at Oren, who stood panting beside him with wild excitement in his eyes. "That was incredible!" Oren exclaimed, wiping sweat from his brow. "You guys are amazing. I've never had so much fun fighting for my life." Varek couldn't help but chuckle despite himself. There was something infectious about Oren's enthusiasm that lifted everyone's spirits after such an intense battle. "Welcome to our team," Varek said finally, extending a tentacle toward Oren in camaraderie. Oren grinned widely as he shook Varek's tentacle firmly. "Thanks. I think I'm going to like it here." As they stood amidst the wreckage of battle, their differences forgotten, they realized that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead in this unforgiving world. And perhaps even forge an unlikely friendship along the way.